just to start, to warm up, I wanted to show, remember that I presented this not so nice diagram. Well, I found one in a book, yes. Unfortunately, I have the copy, right? But anyway, I Googled the authors and I found the authors are Scandera and Burley. And I found this diagram that it's clearly organizes the branches of linguistics. So there you have microlinguistics or core linguistics and macrolinguistics. Yes. My question is, considering the branches of linguistics, which branch deals with competence and which branch deals with performance? You know, Miss Analia loves questions. Yeah. So my question for today to start is, which branches deal with competence and which ones deal with performance? Remember that dichotomy, competence, performance?
Yes.
Mhm,
Microlinguistics, microlinguistics, so the one of phonetics, morphology,
mhm,
syntax,
mhm.
is concerned with competence.
Very good. Great. That is
Macrolinguistic is with performance.
performance, the use of the language, the interaction of the language with other, let's say, with other sciences or with other aspects of human life. For example, you say psycholinguistic is the interaction of linguistic with the cognitive processes involved in language learning, for example, yes, and so on and so forth. Is that clear? We don't need to go back to that, no?
No, it's okay.
Any question?
You can comment.
No, no.
Okay, great. So, as you can see here, the dichotomy between applied versus theoretical linguistics can be discussed at any branch, yes? Right? Because you can study just for the purpose of generating. You can study, for example, sociology just with the purpose of generating theory, or with the purpose of finding a solution to a problem. For example, I can think of accent discrimination. I mean, being discriminated because of your accent. So that could be an applied study of social linguistics. Yes. Well, let's go on. So remember that we said that a language is a highly structured system, okay, and it has a hierarchical structure, and this structure is hierarchical. So these are principles, yes, these three are principles. Remember, which are the levels of this hierarchy? Which are the levels of his? How many levels can you think of uh, to describe the structure of the language? How many? Give me a number.
Um, like six?
Yes, that's the key. Yes, 6 levels. So each level of the language, we are talking about, yes, the levels in which we can divide language to analyze, has a corresponding level of analysis. Sorry. Okay. So let's see. This is the diagram I presented last time, but I want to build a new one with you. So imagine on the left we have the elements of the language that are ordered from the smallest to the biggest. And there is a rule that, let's say, works in this hierarchy. The rule says, remember this one, certain rules operate which allows the combination of the smaller units from larger ones. Yes? Oh, sorry. Oh, how is it? How do we combine these elements? Give me an example. The largest unit is made up of the smallest one. For example, you may take any level. A sentence is made up of, no idea?
A sentence is made up of clauses.
Okay.
Yes,
It's
a
made up.
clause is made up of phrases. Phrases are made up of words. Words are made up of syllables. Syllables
Okay.
are made up of morphemes, and morphemes made up of phonemes.
All right. Is there any other element above phoneme that
Allophones.
is very good? Yes. Well, let's say they are at the same level. Allophones and phonemes, we can say they are at the same level. Okay, but is there any other element we're not paying attention here?
No.
Maybe
Speech.
vowels and
Yes.
consonants.
Okay, they are phonemes, yes. But speech, I understand, Monica, what you want to say. Speech sounds, okay? But speech sounds are not included here because they are, let's say, part of competence, sorry, performance, and we are analyzing competence here, right? Yes,
Okay.
very good. So let's see the levels of analysis. Oh, the levels of analysis. Oh, sorry. Phoneme is studied at by which branch?
Phonetics.
Okay,
Phonology.
in good phonology.
Yeah.
Phonetics,
Phonology.
yes, no problem. Acá está. So phonetics. Go on. Morpheme and syllables.
Morphology and lexis.
Morphology, yes. Then we have words.
Lexis.
Lexis. Oh, lexis. Then we have
Syntax.
Phrases and clauses and sentences.
syntax. Okay, with phrase, clause, and sentence. Syntax. And then we have
Pragmatics.
Pragmatic.
pragmatics. Yes, pragmatics at the end. Yes, pragmatics. Yes, but there is one missing.
Phonology.
Semantics.
Yes, semantics. Semantics. Oh, I think that it's before. Oh, before syntax. Yes. Why? What does semantics study? Can you tell me?
The exact meaning of a phrase or clause.
Okay, the meaning of words, yes, but which meanings? The lexical meaning, the grammatical meaning, and what else? Tengo mi machete. Oh, 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 oh. What are the meanings can we have?
Syntactic meaning.
And the syntactic meaning, right? Yes, in fact, semantics overlaps with lexic and syntax. So I will write it here in the middle because words have meanings on themselves, and then when they are combined in semantics, when they are combined in clauses, phrases, and sentences, we already know that, yes, especially English, yes, that we can have a word having several meanings, yes. So those are the levels of analysis. Ok, lo vamos a poner así en degradé. No encontré un dibujito, dije, bueno, lo vamos a armar con los chicos. Right? No problem here?
No.
No.
No? Clear. Right. Let's go to the homework. You're ready for the homework, aren't you? Okay. Sorry. Oops, internet today. Okay. Coming back to the idea of language, you're linguist, okay? Remember you're linguist by now. What is the degree of difference necessary to distinguish two different languages? How do I know that Catamarqueño is not a different language from Santiagueño, from Cordobés? How do I know they are not different languages but varieties within the same language? There is a key element. Any idea? Any idea? We can discuss on that.
Phonemes, speech sounds.
Could be, but if we think of words, for example, here in Catamarca, yes, there are differences in sound, of course. That's why the accents are different. Catamarqueñan accent, Tucumano accent. Okay, yes. But how do I know that although there are big differences, for example, lástima que hablamos así los catamarqueños que nos aspiramos, ¿ves? Aspiramos las S y el santiagueño que dice lástima, right? How do we know it is the same language and not different language in spite of the allophone differences? The allophonic or phonemic differences. There is one key element that we studied in sec phonetics too. So I asked you to think of the concept of dialects and idiolect. What is a dialect? What is the idiolect?
Dialect is variety of the same language which varies in pronunciation and of grammar.
Okay, yes. For example, mention some dialects of Spanish, please.
The Spanish from, I don't know, Spain.
Yes, the Iberic Spanish, let's say. Imagine. Because there is a Castilian Spanish also.
The Iberic from the Iberic Peninsula.
Yes.
And the one that we speak here in Argentina, for example, in Catamarca or in Buenos Aires.
Okay, yes. But in the standard dialect of Spanish in America is, sorry, in Argentina is Rio Platense.
Rio Platense.
Yes, Rio Platense Spanish. Nobody speaks that. No, yes, los porteños. Okay, okay.
There are big differences, for example, in vocabulary.
Yes. Okay. Imagine here, we have very near Tucumán. Yes. I don't know. Monica will help us with Riojano. Yes. For example, I was born in Catamarca, but I spent all my childhood in Tucumán. I was brought up in Tucumán. So I came here on holiday and say, me decían, destampate el pelo, y yo los miraba, ¿qué? Destampar. En Tucumán no existe destampar. Tenés el pelo tampado, no me acuerdo cómo es ni lo uso. El cococho. Dice, ¿qué? Para nosotros en Tucumán, digo nosotros, ¿ves que me identifico con Tucumán? Sorry. Es Turucuto. Okay, so differences, very different names for the same thing. I remember in language 1, the teacher asked a translation for the word shallow, a shallow river, and I said un río Pampito. And everybody laughed at me. Nobody knew what Pampito meant. Here in Catamarca, nobody uses the word Pampito, the adjective Pampito. Yes, do you know what Pampito is? No. Monica, does it exist in La Rioja?
No, I don't have the least idea what Pampito is.
Pampito is a river, or yes, with very little, con poca profundidad, shallow, ¿sí? Un río Pampito, un arroyo Pampito, es decir, cruza tranquilo que es Pampito, o sea, no te vas a ahogar, ¿sí? But it doesn't exist in Catamarca. Tampa.
Or La Rioja either.
Ajá, ¿cómo se dice en La Rioja? How do you say?
Bajito.
Bajito, en Catamarca bajito. Nosotros en Tucumán tenemos el término pampito y en Tucumán no existe esto de destampate el pelo, la tampa, o sea, enredado. It doesn't exist. But they are part of the same language. Why? Because nobody has an answer. Can I say it? Yes? ¿Quieren que les diga? Of course. And what is an idiolect? Is your particular use of the language. Young people have their own idiolect, okay? They say, for example, F, por decir, bueno, la mala palabra en inglés, pero ya lo adoptaron como diciendo, mi abuela cuando se golpeaba decía miesca. ¿Yes? Bueno, ahora los jóvenes dicen F, no sé, F. No sé qué dicen, no sé, yo las escucho a mis hijas y dicen F como diciendo, bueno, la mala palabra en inglés. Those are
Not necessarily.
not necessarily?
If
Okay, yo
if
lo
it's
interpreto.
like
It means like
fail
bad luck or bad for you or something
Ah,
like
okay.
or fail.
Okay,
Or
thank
fail.
you, because I don't know. I listen to them and I don't belong to their world. They live with me, but I don't belong to the world. They talk about them. I am outside their world. I don't know. So it's a F. I say,
For
okay,
example,
thank you very much.
I was speaking with my neighbor and I told her that I had to get up early today because I have a class. And she told me, F, como diciendo, like saying,
Thank you very much, because
to you.
I thought it was, I mean, slang.
But it's not a
Okay,
bad word or a bad meaning. It's like,
not somos nosotros los cabezas sucias, los grandes, yes. So the idiolect. But anyway, it's Spanish, and I have to accept they are speaking in Spanish. It belongs already to their idiolect. The key to differentiate two varieties as different languages or different dialects of the same language is intelligibility. The two varieties, catamarqueño, riojano, are mutual intelligible. Okay? There is a level of understanding among the speakers, right? So, but if I go to Brazil, well, the level of understanding is less and less and less. Okay, so I say no. Well, in Brazil, they don't speak a different dialect from Spanish, but a different, oh, me said it, but a different language. Yes, Portuguese definitely is a different language. Well, that's it. Si no, la profe Edith va a decir que los entretuve. Okay, hello Edith. We are already answering question number 2. How are you, Edith? Shall I continue? Okay, let's continue. Is that clear? So, which is the degree of difference, mutual intelligibility. Is that okay? Yes?
yes.
This is basic for the linguistic study. How do I know that I will contrast two different languages? Okay, because they have been identified as two unintelligible varieties of linguistic varieties. Very good. Number 2, what is the place of grammar within linguistics? Oh, what a good question. And we may have, oh, ¿dónde está? Here, the diagram. Can you see the place of grammar in the diagram? Grammar belongs to micro or macro linguistics? Very good. Yes, it is here. Yes, it deals with all the levels of analysis of morphology and syntax. And what is grammar? Can you describe? Can you give me a definition of grammar? Any definition, please. Any definition of language, of grammar. What is grammar? You have studied grammar for such a long time. What is it? From your experience.
It's the part of linguistics which is in charge of regulating language in some sense.
Very good. Yes, it is prescriptive. Yes. Grammar, it's a linguistic enterprise, yes. aims at describing all the possible sentences, let's say, all the possible, yes, sentences in a language, all the acceptable sentences, and of course, in describing those structures, in prescribing those structures, sorry, grammar identifies non-acceptable sentences. How do we know that nobody, I didn't ask nobody is incorrect? How do I know that is incorrect? I didn't ask nobody. Is that correct in English?
It is incorrect.
It's
Because
incorrect.
of the double negative.
Very good. And how do you know? Because of grammar. There is a grammar.
Because of grammar, yes.
This,
And
that,
if you want me to read a definition I found
yes, please.
in the Cambridge Online Dictionary, it says the study or use of the rules about how words change their form and combine with other words to make sentences.
Excellent. The rules, the possible combinations, okay? In the same way, phonetics and phonology studies, not phonetics, sorry, phonology studies the possible combinations of sounds and those that are not possible, okay? The same happens with grammar. Grammar will tell us how morphemes are combined into syllables, how syllables are combined into words, and how words are combined into sentences, okay? So, thank you very much. Second answer, okay? Yes? Thank you, Monica, for the definition. Second answer, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Levels of analysis. Do we follow in our majors, that is to say, profesorado, traductorado, licenciatura, do we follow a bottom-up or a top-down approach to the study of the English language? Bottom-up, from discourse to phoneme, or from phoneme to discourse? I mean, from the smaller unit to the largest, or from the largest to the smaller? There may be different answers because there are different subjects. So tell me, what do you think?
At least in phonetics and in grammar, we studied a bottom, but we have like a bottom-up approach.
What do you mean by bottom-up?
Sorry, from the smallest unit to the largest.
Okay, yes, I agree.
With bottom, I mean from the basis.
Yes, from the basis.
Unit.
Este tendría que estar pata para arriba. Yes, this, I mean, upside down. The phoneme should be at the end.
It functions differently. Because we first, in phonetics 1, we started studying the phoneme, which is the smallest unit in speech. And then we studied how these phonemes are combined, and then how these combinations of phonemes can be affected by different phenomena like assimilation, connected speech, stress, etc. And then we study how this combination of phonemes and phenomena are affected by different meanings, such as tones and analysis of discourse.
Great, thank you very much. So the same happens in grammar, as you said. Grammar 1, you study the types, the classes of words, etc., etc. But what happens in, let's say, language, traductología, the other subjects? Is there a different approach or is it the same?
No, at least in traductología it's the same.
The same. Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay. Why is it? Because we are dealing with the system. We are, let's say, mainly concerned with microlinguistics, okay, with the system. But of course, you can think that that approach is not the only one. We can have also a top-down in the case of, for example, secondary school students. They need to study discourse more than the morpheme, the syllable, and the like, right? Thank you very much. No more ideas?
No.
And the last question, and then is Edith's presentation. How do the rules of each level inform the others? And we come back to the diagram, to the pyramid. How do the rules of each level of analysis informs the other? Let's think about phonology and morphology.
By informs.
Sorry?
What do you mean with inform?
How does the description of phonetics will help the description of morphology and morphology? How does morphology level of analysis will help the lexical level of analysis, and so on and so forth? Remember when we studied in second year the relationship between phonetics and phonology and linguistics? Something
Yeah.
like that. Well, food for thought. Go to phonetics 2 or phonetic 3, and then this is for next class, okay? How does phonetic inform morphology? How does morphology inform lexis? How does lexis inform semantics, and so on and so forth, okay? Yes?
Yes.
Well, that is the question. We improve the question. So forget about the rules. The question would say, how does phonology, informs morphology, or how does morphology, because it can be the other way around, okay? How does morphology informs phonology? So that is the question.
I think I have the answer.
Okay, let's see. Let's see, because Edith is ready, I guess. Come on.
I'm gonna write an example.
Okay, so let's leave it for next Wednesday, so the other students also can get an idea, right? So change the question. The question was not clear, right? So change it. How does morphology informs phonology, or any other level you may decide? Edith, are you there? Morning, morning. Oh, that's all we had to study with me, yes. Okay, so for next Wednesday, remember the rules, and also I stopped the presentation, sorry. We had more homework. Qué raro, ¿no? La profe Analia quedándose corta de homework, never ever.
Morning, sorry for the late arrival.
No problem. So this is also homework, the discussion on the place of contrastive analysis. Homework, maybe Edith will introduce something, but anyway. Edith, how are you today? Miss Edith.
Fine, fine.
Okay.
Well,
usted estaba en el chat, sorry.
yo estaba en el chat, pero no problem. Okay, guys.
Okay, sorry. I have to comment on the chat box. I know. Okay, yes, yes, Jot, so I completely agree. Lowest degree of intelligibility. Thank you very much for your contribution. So Jotso's contribution was great. And then Miss Edith. Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
well, what we are going to consider now is connected to the last questions. Analia has just shown that were the following slide in the PowerPoint, right?
Can I share, or you will share your own? You will share, Edith.
I don't have the questions with me. Can you show us the questions again? The last question.
Okay, great. Yes, I can. Yes, can. Yeah. Okay, there. Can you see? No, not yet.
We can, yes, we can.
Okay. So, those are the questions just to discuss on the place of contrastive analysis. Do you want to go on with this, or we change to
please.
your presentation?
No. Let me link these questions with my presentation. So as you see, the idea is to situate contrastive analysis within the field of linguistics. That is why the first three questions have to do with the dimensions of language study. Remember that these dimensions would tell you how the linguistic study we are carrying on is. I mean, the characteristics, whether it is general or whether it is descriptive or specific or particularist, whether it is diachronic or synchronic, whether it is in isolation or comparative, whether it is theoretical or applied. Well, we already know it is applied. Some authors would say that our object of study comes from linguistics, but our purpose, our objective comes from psychology. That is why it is applied linguistics. And finally, what we need to, I even say to decide, but to take into account is whether it is an intralingual or interlingual study. Is it clear what these two terms refer to? Intralingual, interlingual?
If you explain it again, thank you.
Can you say that again, Joaquin?
If you explain it that again, please, if you can explain it.
I mean, I have not. I'm asking you whether you know the meaning of intralingual and interlingual.
No, I have like an idea, but not the specific meaning of the specific concept.
But
Okay.
you know the difference between intra and inter.
You know.
So
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That is what matters. So that's something that will have to do with the particular, let's say, study you do, because as you're going to notice today, some of the differences arrive from the descriptive stage of contrastive analysis, have as a result an intralingual, have as results intralingual, let's say, conclusions that are later contrasted with other languages. Okay, thank you, Miss. Thank you for this sharing. Allow me to introduce mine. Thank you very much. Okay. This is it. Can you see it?
Yes.
yes, we can.
So as you see, it's more or less the same. What I did was to consider these different perspectives and the fact that authors say that even though contrastive analysis has a little bit of all these dimensions, all these dichotomies, our study is particularist mostly, comparative, and synchronic. One thing we need to take into account that it's probably very little left for us to do an original contrastive analysis, because most of the contrasts have already been done by different theorists. All the same, we can be in the process of analyzing a particular contrast in a particular context. So that is what makes our, let's say, our role as a contrastive analyst worth doing it, worth taking it. Well, if we want to study a particular language, I'm going to introduce this and then I'm going to ask you to answer some questions to me, okay? The questions that were in the forum. I was saying that if we want to do a contrastive analysis, we cannot take the whole language. We know that what we do is to work particularly on pairs of languages. Okay, that is one key word we need to take into account. It's pairs of languages, not groups of languages. It's between two, language one and language two. So as it is impossible to take the whole bulk, any of these two languages have, we need to split the language into elements. And the framework suggested by Carl James, the author, that is summarized in set 4 in the manual or handbook, includes 3 elements. The levels, that is to say, to study them from the levels perspective, categories, and by categories here, what we mean is Halliday's, Michael Halliday's, the linguist, categories, and models for linguistic analysis. That is to say, different ways in which the language can be studied. These different ways are sometimes known as grammar, the different grammars we can use to study a language. By the way, the list of models there is not exhaustive. Actually, what I did was to include 5 of, let's say, of the most representative models of all times. We are introducing one that is not in the manual because that's going to be part of your second partial. Oh, who said partial? You have not submitted the first one and when I'm thinking about the second, well, yes. But no worries, I'm just mentioning it, okay? So I was saying, in order to do this contrastive analysis, what we need is to split the language into bits, into sections, into parts. If we work from the perspective of level, what we are going to do is to pay attention to everything you've been discussing with Mrs. Analia. Okay? So you're going to be left with 4 observable levels: phonology, lexis, morphology, syntax. There is an example there in the manual that refers to a new language. If we happen to, not we, I mean linguists, happen to find people speaking a language not known before, such study of the language is going to include elements from all these levels. I mean, all the findings they come to are going to be distributed or categorized in these levels. What the example tries to show is that we are not going to do such analysis at random. It's very likely that we work on phonology first, then lexis, then morphology, and finally syntax. Can you think of a reason for that? Why working on phonology first and not syntax? I mean, I could be part of the linguists studying such language and being very aware of the different sentences produced or realized or uttered by these communities. So why studying phonology first? What would you say? Just because? I don't think so.
Does it have to do something with procedural orientation?
It is a procedural orientation, but there is a reason for such procedural orientation. And it has to do with limits, I would say, with unlimited numbers. We have the expert here. Think of phonology. When we deal with phonology, what we need to do is to classify different sounds according to what?
According to how they are combined and distributed.
Okay, to start with, we are going to match them with the different sounds already known of all languages. We can start by matching them with the sounds of English. So we know there is a certain quantity of sounds, and then we see combinations and the like. So what linguists say is that since it is likable to reduce all elements to a limited number, we start with phonology first. And you may say, well, but syntax has to do with sentence formation, right? So if it has to do with sentence formation, and we know, because you all know by now, that there are, how many patterns have we studied? 6, right? There are authors that say there are 7, others that say there are 8. But I mean, it is also limited. You have 6, 7, or 8 patterns. But what is the problem here? We have a limited number of patterns. However, let me see whether you are in the chat saying something. No.
Edith?
Yes, please.
Don't worry, I will be...
Don't worry, be happy.
I will be... yes, of course. But I will be reading the chat and I will tell you if somebody... So you concentrate in the presentation.
Okay. Coming back to the patterns, we know there are limited patterns in all languages. I'm not saying just Spanish and English that we did study. However, the possible combinations of words, I mean, noun phrases, nouns, verbs, complements, adverbials, and the like, is it limited as the patterns are?
No.
No. So that is the situation. The procedural orientation started in this way because it is easier to handle a limited number of elements, to later move on into the following ones. So in a way, even, I don't know whether I'm answering these questions of the bottom-up and top-down procedure, but this has to do with, let's say, a very simplistic way of taking the contrastive analysis venture at its dawn when it started, okay? About this of limited patterns but unlimited productions, we are going to read again when we consider structural or taxonomic model. A model you already know because that is actually our particular perspective during second year grammar. Okay, we are not going to focus on categories because that implies a whole, I wouldn't say class, probably more than a class, understanding the categories and seeing how they work and how their role implies or affects contrastive analysis. And for models, we are going to do the same as well, taking one after the other. Okay. So this is my introduction to set 4, but my introduction is connected to some questions. Let me check. I'm still out of the Educativa classroom. Poor me. Among the questions you were asked to answer, there was one that said, analyzing sentence patterns showed us the contrast between English and Spanish from the grammatical perspective. Remember that? Probably you don't. Do you want me to show it to you?
Yes.
Show them to you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Joaquin, do not fall asleep. I know I cheated, I overslept. Okay, this is it. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, it says, analyzing sentence patterns, that is what we did, and we are still doing for the video partial, showed us the contrast between English and Spanish from the grammatical perspective. So, our contrast was done at which level? Please tell me. You can just type it in the chat box. The 4 levels were phonology. Remember in the
actually level, our contrast was at the level of syntax.
That's it, at the level of syntax. Because there is also a controversy. There are some authors that say that both morphology and syntax refer to grammar. But if we consider these 4 levels, we would say that it is from a grammatical perspective, from the syntactic point of view. Okay, thank you, Joaquin. I know you are the voice of the people. You are talking, representing your partners, how good you are. But it says, do all differences between languages take place at the level of syntax? Justify your answers. Okay, guys, since I'm out of the Educativa classroom, I wasn't able to read your answers, but you can copy them down here or briefly summarize, or probably you have not typed them down, but you have an idea out of what I mentioned before. So the question is whether all differences between languages take place at the level of syntax. Let's say common sense. Is it so?
No.
No. To start with, probably the most outstanding differences for a person who is not a linguist are words, right? So the first things that call our attention are at the level of lexis. And if we are comparing our language to another language of the same linguistic family, some words can be similar, but they are pronounced differently. So those differences would be at the level of phonology and the like. So what we know so far for sure is that not all contrasts, differences between languages are going to or take place at the same level. They occur at different levels. That is fundamental because that happens to every single pair of languages you compare. Differences can be fewer or more, but there will be differences at different levels. Okay? Well, guys, let me show you back the presentation. And you thought contrastive grammar was fun and nice. No, today we have theory to discuss. Okay, are you able to see the framework again?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let's move on. Our focus today is on levels of languages, and I copied them down here just to have them at hand. What Joaquin mentioned, well, was right. At the beginning, linguists thought that the best procedure was to move from phonology, then morphology, and finally syntax. I would say that when the circumstances allowed it, lexis was introduced between phonology and morphology. I'm just going to make up an example. You may have 2 languages from the same, as I said before, linguistic family. You have the same word, like I'm trying to recall a simple example. You have chocolate and chocolate, but not the same family, but chocolate. Chocolate would be in Portuguese. So we have the same word, but we have differences at the level of, you tell me?
At the level of phonology.
Of phonology, right. The thing is that there are instances of contrasting that are not going to be answered from the phonology, morphology, or, well, lexical or syntactic perspective. Probably what happens or what takes place in a language is realized from a phonological perspective, but in another language, it's realized from a syntactical one. So what the authors, what James is saying here is that following the traditional procedural orientation cannot answer all questions or cannot solve of instances of contrastive analysis. What we need to do is to mix or cross levels. I'm going to show that in an example, no worries with that. Just let me get back to question number 2. To see whether you have any clue what I'm talking about. Just a minute. I need to share a different window. This is it. Can you see the... Oh, can you see
Yes.
the image here? Well, in the dawn of contrastive analysis was question number 2. In the dawn of contrastive analysis, comparative and contrasting descriptions were done at one level. That is what I have just mentioned. This was proved, or this was proved not to apply, sorry, my mistake there, not to apply is meant to be infinitive, to all differences. So what was stated then, and we are answering that we need to consider contrasts or descriptions at one level in what language, or from one level in what language, not at from, and a contrast at another level in another language. Well, it sounds a bit complicated to say, but let's make this simpler by showing you some examples. Now, can you see what I'm seeing? Levels of the language. So we said that we need to mix and cross levels. So let's see what is meant by mix or crossing levels. In order to do so, what we need to is to recall how contrastive analysis is done. And I have simplified, because this is a simplified scheme or framework for contrastive analysis. What we do first is to describe, remember, describe language 1, describe language 2, and then you compare and contrast to later anticipate learning problems, translation problems, and provide solutions, right? Well, I have reduced this procedure to 2 steps. Stage or step of description, when you describe both languages, and the stage or step of juxtaposition or comparison. For comparison, sorry. Juxtaposition is when, as if you had to, let's say, I missed a word. Lo digo en español. ¿Se acuerdan cuando ponían el retroproyector y usaban unas láminas de acetato? No sé cómo se llaman en inglés, pero pensé que le iba a tener. Que eran las filminas de entonces. Entonces es como, la juxtaposición sería poner 2 láminas de acetato, one will have the information on one language, and the other will have the information on the other language. So you place one on top of the other. And what you're left with is the contrast. Where they coincide, you have the similarities. Where they do not, you have the differences. Okay, is it clear what I'm trying to show? That image? Okay.
Yes. Transparency. I find the word transparency.
Thank you, my dear. Yes, they are so young. They don't even know what retroprojector is. But one day we can visit the museum and see what it is. Okay.
I had a filmina, but not now. But I showed my girls the other day and said, "What's this?"
Or remember, they were not that cheap. So we would care for them as if they were our treasures. My precious. Okay. So let's focus on these 2 steps. Oops, my mistake. There it is. What I'm going to propose you first is to contrast two sentences within one language and see how this contrast works in another language. This is in set 4. Okay, we are taking examples from set 4. Let's see the first contrast. I'm sorry. We have a pair of sentences in English that say, we knew where it was. We found out where it was. You may say, why should we contrast them? Well, actually, the procedure would be the other way around. If we would contrast these two in Spanish, sabíamos dónde estaba, supimos dónde estaba. Did you know that sabíamos and supimos are conjugations of the same verb?
Yes.
Did you know that?
Yes.
¿Sabían eso? Okay. Let's go further. Now tell me, which tenses are they in Spanish? You may get a prize if you're right. I hope not all of you are. Too many. Yes, please.
In the first example, sabíamos, it's conjugated in the pretérito imperfecto.
Right. Joaquin, you are about to get the prize. Yes.
And in the second case is pretérito perfecto.
Pretérito perfecto simple o pretérito indefinido. Thank you very much. That's it. Well done.
In Spanish one, for that reason I know that.
Say that again.
I'm in Spanish one as an helper, and
you are cheating. Okay, so if you're the helper of Spanish language one, allow me to congratulate you because students have said that they get great help from that person and you never knew it was you.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes, they mentioned you as the master of help in first year English. Oh, sorry, Spanish grammar. Thank you. Well, those are the tenses. As you see, both tenses refer to the past. So sabíamos and supimos, as I mentioned before, are two forms, let's say, of the same verb. If we consider this in Spanish, the contrast is at the grammatical level. So as you see, James prefers sometimes to reduce the levels to 3. Phonology, lexis, and grammar. Remember that by grammar, he implies morphology and syntax. So sabíamos and supimos, it's a grammatical contrast. But in order to show such contrast, to use similar, because we may not have the same tenses, to use similar tenses in another language may not be the solution. For instance, sabíamos, I don't know whether you knew, but sometimes probably translators know this better. Imperfecto is translated into past continuous. But it's very unlikely to say, I was knowing where it was. Do you find that natural for an English speaker? I was knowing where it was.
No.
No.
Grammar does not allow that construction.
So that is not a possibility to consider these from the same level. So in order to make such contrast, sabíamos, supimos, what probably we need to is to make use of lexical items. That is to say, different words. That is why knew is used for sabíamos and found out for supimos. So this is an example of crossing levels. The fact that we cannot explain these contrasts that are intralingual first. We cannot explain these contrasts by referring or by taking findings from one level. Clear so far? Any questions? Any doubts?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Why is it called? From what I understood, intralingual was in the same language, and interlingual was into one to another language, so two languages or more.
Yes.
It was an intralingual analysis, you mean? I don't understand that.
You may say intralingual study. Intralingual is an adjective, so you can apply it to study, source, contrast. The idea is that what you do is solved or sort it out just by making reference to another element in the same language.
Okay.
I think we have seen these terms before, but slightly intralingual. I know inter because you have interlingual studies, interlingua, and interlingual as terms refer to instead referring from one language to another. But intra is the idea that you take an element from one language and compare it to another element of the same language. For instance, you have the commonest, instance where you can find intralingual being used is when you have mistakes or errors. Sometimes, remember when we refer to transfer, we said sometimes they are from an interlingual source. That is to say, they apply what they know from Spanish as their native language to English, the new language. So it is interlingual. The mistakes that they make is from an interlingual source. But if you overgeneralize, for instance, in writing down in orthography in Spanish, children tend to overgeneralize rules. So they know, let's say, that all words ending in sion are spelled with C. But there may be a word, I cannot recall one, ending with in sion but spelled with S. Transmisión. No? Yeah.
Yes.
Transmisión. Well, when writing this in their notebooks, they may use a C because they are overgeneralizing a rule. So that mistake is, say that again?
In the same language, like
in the same language. That's why, though it is intralingual. So intralingual is an adjective that can be used or applied to different other terms as study, contrast, source, and the like. Okay? The idea here is that when you focus on these examples you have in the manual or handbook, take into account that what you did first was to contrast in one language and try to find the same contrast in another language and see whether the contrast comes from the same level source or not. Okay?
Yes, much better.
Much better. Thank you. Well, let's see. Other examples. These examples are going to be read by Mrs. Analia. Oh, because she's the masters of French pronunciation.
What? I don't need. No, I want to read the English one because of the intonation.
No, I'm terrible. I'm accent French.
Ok, ya lo dije. No me escucharon.
Okay.
No, I will repeat. So, but maybe some of our students want to read. Do you want to read? Anybody speaking French? No?
No.
I'm Italian.
Okay. Well, okay. I will read French provided you read Russian, Edith.
Oh, no. I prefer to read German.
But they will, let's see, one of you will read the English version because there is a phonological contrast you are able to do because of we did it in phonetic 3. The first meaning, je ne prête pas mes livres à n'importe qui, in Spanish, Edith, how do you say? Je ne prête pas mes livres à n'importe qui.
Just a minute. No le prestaría. Okay,
no
someone can help me.
No le presto mis libros a
libros a
nadie o cualquiera.
a ver,
What do you think?
n'importe qui. ¿N'importe qui? N'importe qui.
Aquí.
N'importe qui. ¿Qué les parece, chicos? ¿Será nadie o cualquiera?
Je ne prête pas mes livres. N'importe qui. Ajá. Ajá. A ver,
Están dormidos, los peques.
sorry.
Mm,
Nadie o cualquiera. Well, let's see in English. If the meaning is I don't, no le presto mis libros a nadie. Can you say that meaning? Can you say it aloud? That meaning in English? No le presto mis libros a nadie. How do you say that in English?
Can we call some third-year students?
No.
Fourth year. They
were my students and they were brilliant. Everybody passed the subject, so they must say it. Come on,
But
please.
then it's the luck factor, you know?
So, is it with a falling tone or with a fall rising tone? I'm giving options for you. If I say nadie, no le presto mis libros a nadie, lo puedo.
It'd be with falling, right?
Very good.
Anyone.
So, yes, can you say it, please?
I don't lend my books to anyone.
Excellent. So, in French, is it n'importe qui or personne? Ya me salió ruso ahí. Personne. Je ne prête pas mes livres à personne. ¿Cuál de los dos será? N'importe qui o personne? Okay, this is very interesting intralingual and interlingual differences. A very good example. So first we need to know how to express the meaning within the same language. Within English, intralingually, and within French, intralingually. And then so as to be able to compare interlingually, yes? So,
Miss, sorry, n'importe qui significa cualquiera.
a cualquiera. Y persona, nadie.
A nadie.
Sí, bueno, ahora lo digamos en inglés. How do you say, I don't lend my books to anybody, persona? I don't lend my books to n'importe qui, como lo dirían en inglés. How do you say it in English? A tone. It has to be a different tone from falling. Which one could it be, Wada? Or, okay. A ver qué dice el chat, Wada. So, even though Spanish, Italian, no, estoy leyendo.
I'm just writing the.
Ok, persona es nadie, sí. Es porque porque el francés tampoco permite el doble negativo en este caso. Je ne peux pas me dire personne. Wada, sorry, I didn't listen to you.
No, I didn't say anything. I'm thinking.
A cualquiera, ¿cómo diríamos? No le presto mis libros a cualquiera. Podría ser porque implico que es solamente un grupo selectivo.
For writing?
Yes, very
anyone?
good. How do you say? Okay.
I don't lend my books to anyone.
Okay, very good. That is.
Okay.
Yo lo haría más exagerado. I don't lend my books to anyone. Lo haría más exagerado, pero usted lo hizo perfecto. Anyone.
So the conclusion was that the contrast in English has to do with intonation, right?
Yes.
That is to say, from the phonology perspective. But the contrast in French and in Spanish, oh, I thought it was my child. in French and in Spanish is from the lexical, right?
Yes.
From a lexical perspective. Okay. Well, let's move into the following one. Here we have, well, sorry, my mistake in spelling. We have in English, we have a contrast between English and Spanish, a very well-known contrast. Acá ya ahorita. Okay. A very well-known contrast. You have affirmative sentences that look exactly the same, but for the question marks, to interrogative sentences. ¿Lo conoces? ¿Lo conoces? Okay. While in English, if we translate that literally, you say, you know him, do you know him? As you see, the intonation is the same. So where is the contrast? I mean, the contrast is not from the phonological level for both. In Spanish, it is from phonology. But in English, you have the answer there. But you can explain.
Grammar.
Okay, it is syntax, grammar. But why?
The auxiliary verb.
That's it. The auxiliary verb is needed. It's not that you just apply the rules for intonation. No, you need the auxiliary verb. So what is a phonological contrast in one language? It turns out into a grammatical contrast in another. Is it clear so far?
Yes.
Yes. We cannot listen to you.
Sorry. It was because the kettle was whistling. Yeah, I'm in the kitchen, that's why. I was saying, oh, sorry, that
Coronavirus. No.
Mancha Corona, that is what I would like to play. I was saying that these examples are showing us that we cannot take the same contrast in one language and in another all the time from the same level. I mean, considering the same level source. What we need to do is what I mentioned in the previous PowerPoint. Not PowerPoint, no, I wish I had so many. In the previous slide in the PowerPoint, which was to mix or cross levels. Oh, no. So what we did is to follow this rule at the bottom. Mixing or crossing levels is sometimes necessary to account for some facts of the language, okay? Well, these mixing or crossing levels we have just shown in the examples are called interlingual level shift. Can you see here at the bottom? Interlingual level shift. So let's split this out. I am not sharing anymore. We have this term, interlingual level and shift. So by these three elements in the term, what we are saying that is that there was a change, right? What we have as a result in one language was changed into something, let's say, unexpected, because it was not the same in another language. That is the, let's say, the reason for the word shift. Level. Why do we call this level shift? Remember the examples. Originally, they were, the contrast, the interlingual contrast was at the level of phonology, with the intonation being involved. While the other, when you say lo conoces, okay, there you have. While in the other language, the level involved was grammar. So as you see, the change you made from one example to another was at the level. Esta es la otra ladera, mamá.
A level refers to interlingual, not to shift. So it's like it's modifying, going to grammar 2.
Say that again.
That level, interlingual level, shift level here refers to interlingual and not to grammar, to shift, sorry.
Right, yes, that's right, that's right. I'm just trying to use some mnemonics for you to remember these three terms, because these are not going to be the only shifts. All the shifts are going to be interlingual. Esa es el 14. Okay. Sorry, I need. I'm going to show you an example because I need to do something here. Sorry for the interruption. Let me show you an example for you to think on whether this shift takes place. An interlingual is because this shift, this contrast is between two languages, remember? Even though the source for the contrast first was in one. Okay, this is for you to think on. A París no llegamos nunca. Nunca llegamos a París. We'll never get to Paris. We'll never get to Paris. Am I doing right in reading it in that way? Okay, I leave you a minute, just a minute, for you to ponder on this contrast, please.
All right, Edith. We're going to discuss that. So, a París no llegamos nunca. How do we express that meaning in English using the utterance, "We'll never get to Paris"? What do you think? A París no llegamos nunca. ¿Mm? How can you say it in English? Or maybe nunca llegamos a París. Which one? Which one? The one you prefer. The utterances in English are the same, but we have two different meanings to express.
Okay, may I add something?
Yes.
It has to do in Spanish with emphasis and with elements placement in order to show emphasis. Which
no le dé la respuesta, profe. Ya le
just mention
the first one. The first one would be, "We'll never get to Paris," and the other one would be, "We'll never get to Paris."
Right.
Okay, that is one possibility, right? Okay, any other possibility? Imagine someone complaining and saying, "Nunca llegamos a París." Probably there is not going to be sentence stress. But the intonation, right? Yes. All the same, no worries, no worries. This is not a test for
no, it's okay, because when you place prominence, you place contrastive prominence. So never will be with high key. This is what you mean. You will never get to Paris. Okay, something like this. Yes.
Right.
Apart from prominence, we have to add key. Right.
Right.
Do you agree, people? Yes.
I do.
All right. Thank you.
Well, but what about Spanish? We know we have our phonetics and phonology professor here. We know the contrast in English is at the phonological level. Now,
but in Spanish, No phonological level.
A París no llegamos nunca, nunca llegamos a París. We are saying the same. We are using more or less, no, more or less, not all. More or less all the same questions, but the situation changes. Why?
From the syntactical point of view.
That's it. You place never at the beginning, which means that is where the focus is there. So from a syntactical point of view, the distribution of elements is different, even though the meaning is not, I mean, the first, how can I say this? At first surface, at surface level looks the same. From a more semantically perspective, we have different meanings. Okay? But just putting this simple, it is syntactical or grammatical in the first pair, and it is what in the second?
Phonological.
Phonological. So how would you call this shift? Now we are not going to say contrasts. Now they are called shifts. How do you call this shift?
Syntactical to phonological shift?
But remember the term we mentioned before? We say interlingual level shift. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that is the way we are going to define these shifts. They are called interlingual level shift. And now we add what you are saying, Joaquin. From a syntactical
Interlingual level shift from a syntactical to a phonological
level.
Level.
Just simple as that. Okay. Let's go back to the previous ones. Okay, I'm going to write this down for you to, I'm going to share the PowerPoint, by the way, so that you have the examples, but they are more or less the same, more or less, not the same. More or less the same you have in your manual. So this is an interlingual level shift from, or you can put it simpler, from grammar to phonology. The one we've just mentioned. A Paris, for you to remember, just write in this sentence. A París no llegamos nunca. And the other was nunca llegamos a París. Okay, let's try to apply these terms to the previous examples and see how the shifts were. Just a minute. I'm going to be moving to another location, but let me show you this. Can you see the slides? There. 2 steps.
Yes.
Crossing levels 1, and there you had an example. We knew where it was, we found out where it was. Sabíamos dónde estaba, supimos dónde estaba. So if you start with the contrast in English first, and then you consider the contrast in Spanish, we are talking about an interlingual, you help me complete the classification. An interlingual, someone level shift, okay, from lexis, because these were 2 different words in English, to grammar. What if we have done the study in a different order? We have considered the contrast in Spanish, I mean the contrast of tenses in Spanish, and then we saw how to sort this contrast in English by using 2 different words. So if we invert, am I saying it right? If we change the order, if we analyze Spanish first And then English, we would have an interlingual level shift from grammar to lexis. Is it clear how I'm doing this procedure of analyzing contrasts and crossing levels?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, second example. It says, I don't lend my books to anyone. Was it in that way, miss? And the other was to anyone. So the contrast was from phonology turned into lexis, right? So this is an interlingual, you tell me. Interlingual. Now it's easy because you have just level shift. Later you will have rank shift, and after that you will have medium shift. But now it's easy. Interlingual level shift from, it is said there, chronology to lexis. Do you agree with me? Yes, because it's written there.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, and finally, lo conoces? Lo conoces, sorry, lo conoces? You know him? Do you know him? It's an interlingual level shift from phonology to grammar. Any questions? Any doubts? Okay, I have homework. Okay, homework for you. You have these examples. Mi tía estuvo aquí. Mi tío estuvo aquí. And you have the contrast in English. Then you have los niños salen, las niñas salen, les niñas salen. And you have how to say that in English. What you need to do is to compare these pairs of pairs. You have a pair of pairs and say whether they are examples of interlingual level shift or not. Okay, because probably we are studying the language and we are a bit, no!
Ah!
You saw nothing. Okay, never mind. So I will share the homework for you and you will tell me whether they are right or wrong. And finally, the very last thing I want you to do as homework is just to travel with your imagination a little bit. I'm going to share a link. Let me see if the link is working. Yes, it is. This is food for thought or something to just a minute. I will stop sharing. Something for you to do when you have some time to analyze this map. There are plenty of maps in this Word Atlas of Language Structures online by Professor Dryers. But I would like to pay attention to this map because what we are going to be working with next week is negation. Because there was a question regarding negation. Okay? So I'll ask you to compare some sentences, probably not those ones I showed. I have others in mind, but some sentences and say whether they are examples of interlingual level shift. No worries, that's going to be part of a forum, an interlingual level shift, and to go through this map, an interesting map on language structures. Okay? By the way, among the questions you may be asked to consider negation. Negation is a whole set in the second section of the manual, but once again, no, because it has not happened to us. That set is only concerned with negation in Spanish, not in English, because negation is something you already know from studying language 1, language 2, English grammar 1, English language 2, language 3, language 4, and the like. Okay? Well, that would be all for now. In the forum between today or tomorrow, we are going to be asking you, I'm going to be repeating this homework you need to do, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions as regards negation. By the way, something to say about the negation chapter. it is written about Spanish negation from an English speaker perspective. So there may be things you may not be, you may not agree so much with, but remember that he had in mind his own language, okay, which is English. So probably some things that are not explicit there were just in his mind and the like. But it is an interesting chapter. Okay, further questions, further doubts, remember to write them down in the WhatsApp group. And that would be all for now. That would be all, folks. Thank you very much. I hope it was not too, how can I say, abstract? Well, there are more abstract things in grammar. So I hope it was not that that hard. Well, that is it. Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank
Little
you.
homework.
See you.
Thank you. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
See you next Wednesday at 9. Next
Yes.
Wednesday?
Yes,
At
okay.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye. See you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.